Tottenham nil, Chelsea 1. Like, share, subscribe, do all of that. Yeah. That was probably the worst performance of the season. I put that up there with Bournemouth, if I'm honest. The blueprint set for Tottenham. I said this from pretty much when we played Burnley, because Burnley did it in little spells, but we beat them 3-0 because they could only keep up and do it in spells. It was the first game of the season. But you could clearly see that if you press Tottenham, all they're going to do is go long. And if your centre halves have control of either Richarlison, Kolo Muani, Solanke if he was to be fit, whoever we put up front, you win the game. If you press Tottenham and beat them to the press, which you will do because we don't press, this is what happens. Who do I blame? It's a mixture of everybody because, a lot of people forget that a lot of these players, fair enough, they won the Europa League, but a lot of these players were responsible for us finishing 17th. The mentality ain't going to switch from the mentality that we had last season to what we've got now. You're not just going to turn into winners. I mean, you'd have a slight bit of winning mentality when it comes to maybe cup games, but consistent league games, Thomas Frank's got it on his hands, and the players ain't just going to switch up like that. But again, if I'm going to look at the manager, I looked at the lineup and I thought we've got 4 centre midfielders. I hoped that we were playing a diamond because I feel our wingers aren't great enough. Kudus can move in more centrally. Maybe that would work. And I feel that realistically, we should be playing with a back 3. I know it's sweaty, but back 3 is best for us because we haven't got any good wingers apart from Kudus. Kudus can play centrally. The best performance we've had pretty much all season was against PSG with 3 at the back and Kudus and Richarlison up front. And I feel that Kudus up front with a striker helps us out because the strikers that we've got are rubbish. Kolo Muani looks like he's had a spliff before the game. Richarlison kind of reminds me of the Richarlison I used to hate when he plays at Everton. Now we've got him. But then you look to the lineup again. You're like, Bergvall, if he didn't have his concussion, he was playing off the left. That proves how bad our wingers are. When we're trying to chase the game, we're bringing on people like Brendan Johnson, who against Newcastle, we all saw just can't cross, and all he can do is tap in. The only thing I can give Ange credit for is getting a tune out of this geezer because I'm not being funny, yeah? If I had Brendan Johnson's fitness, right? If I had his fitness in terms of being an athlete, you might as well let me play for Tottenham because I could probably do a lot more things better than Brendan Johnson. I'm not even joking. That's how I rate the player. He's not a player that should be playing for a top 6, top 8 side. He should be playing for somebody that's trying to get relegation or better, a championship team because all he does is back posts. And you need more than that when you're playing in the Premier League. Papsar, I was glad he started today, but Thomas Frank has left him out for ages. Nobody knows why. But even when we had Papsar playing, in the early parts of the season, we were a pressing team. We pressed Man City into a victory. We did well against PSG. He was pressing against Burnley. Papsar was our player of the month by pressing because he's a pressing monster. That's what everyone was calling him. Now all of a sudden, we're not pressing anymore and Papsar ain't playing. Who's that on? You can't blame that on Papsar. You've got to blame that on the coach. Thomas Frank is slowly slipping into some horrible pragmatism. And people are, comparing him to Conte, but Conte didn't really play it long too tough. It was always like, we'll sit in, but 4 passes was in for a counter-attack. This team's looking at home, especially, that we can't pass. Away, I might be with Thomas Frank, because our team suits an away outfit. The way that we play, Thomas Frank doesn't give me confidence that he's going to sort that out at home, because we've got players like Xavi Simons. Fair enough, he's been really bad. But he probably doesn't feel confident that he can get used to this type of football because we don't play through the lines. We don't play transitional football. Even when we're looking to counter-attack. So today we're playing against Chelsea. There's times where we, let's say Jed Spence would get it at left back. You play it down the line, right? And cut it, play it down the line to say Xavi Simons. Xavi Simons cuts it inside. Paulinho's got it. We're thinking, right, sweet. We're on for a counter here. The next thing you know, it's being passed back to Danso. And Danso's passing it out to Pedro Porro. And in that time, Chelsea have stepped up 10 yards with Caicedo, who for me was man of the match today. And we're back to playing it back to Vicario, who's no good at his feet. We're not adventurous enough, we're not brave enough. It's pretty evident, for instance, when we had Ange, that we didn't really work on our defence. When I look at Thomas Frank, I don't really feel like we work on playing football. What we're going to do in the final third. Because we played Everton and I was happy with that because I don't really mind doing that type of football at Everton's ground, at Man United, at Arsenal, because I could already see that we're not attractive enough to play proper football. Because look at what we're doing at home. We've lost to Bournemouth, who realistically should have won about 5-0. We lost to Chelsea, realistically should have won 5-0. And Aston Villa deserved their win, and they could have, 2-1 probably suited them, but still, we didn't look like we were going to even equalise after they scored their second goal. So, people keep saying to me, Thomas Frank, he's got something to work on. And for me, I'll give him a year, but he's not that manager, He is in a sense, we've seen it at Brentford. He had Ericsson, he had Damsgaard, and realistically, he kind of needed a year with those guys for them to understand his system and kind of implement their creativity along with his pragmatism. And it worked, because you look at Damsgaard now, bearing the fruits. Ericsson came in, he's playing a lot more of a deeper role to understand what Thomas Frank did. Towards the end of the season, he was playing in a number 10, getting assists for Brentford. So, it's going to take time, possibly, for Xavi Simons to get into this team, just for the sheer fact that we need to he needs to understand what we're trying to do. But have Tottenham got time? Because Xavi Simons was brought in to create, and he got bought on and bought off. I know he pretty much started there because Bergvall got injured within the first sort of 6 minutes or whatever. But to be brought on and then brought off when you're supposed to be our star man, that ain't going to do his confidence any good. But at the same time, he wasn't doing anything. I think if I'm going to give Thomas Frank some leeway, there is a lot of players there that, regardless of who the coach is, just ain't good enough. Richarlison spent, 20 minutes, trying to win fouls and, do his shithousery and all that. Like, we don't need that when we're losing 1-0. If it's 2-0 up and you come in and, you're winding people up and slowing down the game, I ain't got a problem with that. But you're doing it when we're trying to win a game, mate. You're up front. Kolo Muani, like I said, it's like he's had an argument with his missus before the game, and she's the one that wears the trousers in the relationship. So he's just walking around like a soppy old man. Like, there's no fire in his belly. He has a few silky touches here and there. But again, Thomas Frank is to blame as well as him, because we're just playing long balls into somebody that's played for Juventus and PSG. And let me tell you straight, I've watched him in those games, and he's never had to receive long balls unless it's from a clearance. But now you're being relied on. And Chalobah and his other defence, but I can't even think who it was, man. My head's gone. But their centre-halves just had a field day. Caicedo had a field day. Cucurella got made to look like Roberto Carlos. And again, the only people in the team that I look at and 100% fill me with reassurance that you know what you're supposed to do when you wake up in the morning, regardless of what the coach says, is Paulinho, Van der Ven, Kudus, and Jed Spence. Pedro Porro, a lot of people, they throw stats at me. I'm not convinced by this guy. This guy isn't the greatest going backwards. Going forward, he was kicking it out for throw-ins today, and he does that a lot more than people suggest. He's not too bad on set pieces, doesn't really score any. My fallback areas would be occupied by Odogi and Jed Spence, just because I think they're better going forward, and they're better if we need to sit in and defend, because they're athletes that not many wingers in this league will get past. Garnacho found it relatively easy against Pedro Porro. A lot of the time, if he'd found João Pedro, could have had a couple of assists. Pedro Neto didn't really do much. That's because Jed Spence was playing in the position that he likes playing, but he's a right back, you know. So there's no point me sitting here saying there's a lot for Thomas Frank to work on, because he's not just going to wake up in the morning and play attacking football, because there is times in games where we've took Bentancur off, we've put Bergvall in there, we've put Papsar in there, we've put Simmons in there, we've put Odebert in there, we've put Tell, we've put Kudus, we've put Richarlison, we've put all our attacking options, and I don't look at a game and think I'm confident that I'm just going to go and grab a beer from the fridge and see some nice football. You know, we don't really play nice football. You know, Burnley, we won 3-0. I remember coming off there and saying to my son, it was 3-0, but Burnley had chances. We played Everton, controlled the game really, but all goals were scored with that. Was it good football? I'll take it. It was a solid performance, but I can't remember a game where Tottenham played well, apart from PSG. But since realistically, we could have beaten PSG, European champions, yeah? And Thomas Frank hasn't done that again. Why, if we played Chelsea and had Danso, Romero and Van der Ven, that allows for any fullback. So Pedro Porro, even if he wants to do what he's doing, he's probably better going forward. But if he's got Danso there to cover, nice. Stick Jed Spencer or Doggy on the other side, they can be our wingers, because realistically, them two fullbacks are better than our actual wingers, bar Kudus. So if you've got that solidarity around the back, you can afford to play Paulinho, and you don't have to put Bentancur in it. But if you do want to, we don't really concede goals. And then anybody else in front of them, do what you want. Kudus, you say go left, go right, go up front. Richarlison, Kolo Muani, Tell. You lot do what you want. You've got the freedom of the park to go and score the goals, because there's no need for you to come back. We've got it solid here. And then you can say to the wing backs, do your job up and forward. I think it's a perfect formula, and I know that because I've seen us do it against PSG just before the league started. And then since that performance, I haven't been convinced. Do you get what I'm saying? So, it's... I can't. The first thing that comes to my tongue is Thomas Frank's got something to work on. Do I feel confident that he's going to do it? No, because realistically, he needs an attacking coach in there, because we are going to get to the point where we're relying on fixtures away in order to get results. You know, next game's Copenhagen. We'll probably scrape that, maybe a 1-0 or a 2-1 or something. They'll give us a game and then we'll end up winning it. Tottenham are back, and then we've got Man United, who effectively play the formation that I'm asking for. And, if we're not careful, if they can go to Anfield where nobody, fair enough, Liverpool bad, but if they go to Anfield where nobody wins and win 2-1, and then from there win 2 games on the spin, they're quite easily going to beat a team like ours who don't win at home. It's as simple as that, So I thought this would be a springboard game. We fluffed it. We go to Copenhagen the next game. Do I feel confident we'll win that? Possibly. I'm not going to get too excited a bit, because I know there's not going to be no exciting football. And then we go to Man United. But it's, Thomas Frank is learning. So I did say to myself, I'll give this year, not a miss, but this year I'll give him a year to work it out. But early signs are showing me that you're not going to be able to, because like I say, you've put Xavi Simons in a number 10. Ain't seen no fluid football. I've seen our strikers not really do much. I've seen our wingers not really do much. And then the one winger we do see do much gets doubled up and we don't have a plan B. So my advice to Thomas Frank, if he was ever to take it off me, do a 3 at the back. No one's going to like it, but it allows our fullbacks to do what they're very good at. It allows our central midfield to be a little bit more adventurous, where we don't have to have Bentancur and Paulinho, and then you can have sort of 3 attacking players. You could either have Xavi Simons in a hole with the freedom of the park, with a Kudus and a striker up front, or you can have 3 of them, either as in like 1 up front and two wide again. Just kind of like how Man United do from Bremo and Cunha. But I think that's the best way we do it, because at the minute we're not doing anything and everybody's struggling in the positions that they play in, just for the sheer fact that We've got two defensive midfielders that do the same thing. We've got one creative player that's off form, and we've got four strikers that can't score. Work that one out for me. But yeah, show us some love, like, share, subscribe, do all of that, comment, and I'll be back in the midweek to do an Only Fools and Horses because I think it's that time. Love, have a blessed weekend.